Today we're going to show you how to change the closer plate on your refrigerator. And it's a really easy job. All we're going to need is a Phillips screwdriver and a putty knife, a 3/8 wrench, or a 3/8 socket with a ratchet. Let me show you how we do it. Now the first step in this repair will be to open the refrigerator door, and we should turn the refrigerator off so that we're not wasting electricity by pumping cold air into your room. Now if it is the freezer door that you're replacing this part on, we will need to take the top hinge off, disconnect the wire harness, and also we'll have to remove the bottom kick plate and disconnect the water supply. If it's a fresh food door, we simply need to take the hinge cover off, remove the hinge, and lift the door off. We'll show you the replacement for the freezer side. Begin with a putty knife. Just go in the top of the kick plate, just pry it back enough that you can get your hands in behind it and pull it forward. There are 4 clips across the top and 4 more on the bottom. Once we've released those, we can set that kick plate aside. And then we're going to disconnect the water line. Now there may be some water in that tubing, so it'll be handy to have a towel handy to sop up any of that water. Simply depress the little collar on the end of that connector and slide it off. We can now close both doors. And we'll next remove the hinge cover. There is a single Phillips screw at the rear of the hinge. Just remove that screw. Slide the cap forward, and then we can set that aside. Next, we'll disconnect the wire harness connector. Next, we'll remove the 2 3/8 inch bolts. And you can use either a ratchet or an open-end wrench. Make sure the door is firmly closed before you remove these bolts. That way the magnet will hold the door in position. And you'll also have removed all of the items on the shelves on the inside of the door before we remove it. The top hinge disconnected. We're going to tilt the door towards us, and we'll just carefully lift it up through the bottom hinge plate. And we'll want to lay that aside, taking care not to damage the tubing that protrudes from the bottom of the door. Next, we'll remove a single Phillips screw. Slide the old closure plate off, position the new one, and it has a little locating pin that will line up with a hole in that bottom hinge. We'll reinstall the screw. And now we'll reinstall the door, and it may help to have a second person to guide that water line into the opening. So we want to take care that we don't kink that hose. Position it so that it sits firmly down on that closer plate. We can press the door into position. The magnet should hold it. And we'll reinstall the hinge. We'll just snug these two bolts up first before we tighten them. We want to check the alignment of the door. And we'll check for an even gap between bottom and top of the two doors, and we can adjust the hinge sideways to compensate, making sure that we have a nice straight line, and it's also flush with the edge of the cabinet. Once we've lined it up, we'll tighten those bolts completely. We'll reconnect the wire harness, making sure the little locking tab engages. Next, we'll slide the hinge cover into position, line it up in the front, and then just push it straight back until it hooks on the front. Reinsert the Phillips screw in the back. And we need to turn the refrigerator back on. And next we'll reconnect the water line on the bottom. So we'll open both doors. Locate the tubing in the connector. Make sure that we haven't damaged the end of that water line. And we're just going to fully insert it into that coupling and then pull back on the coupling. Make sure that it's firmly connected. And we'll reinstall the kick plate. So we'll line it up so that it covers both hinges. Make sure it's centered, that the water line is not caught on anything. And we'll engage the bottom clips first and depress the top ones. Same time putting some pressure to snap it into place. And our repair is complete.